Today is Sunday, July 8th, and this is Celtics Beat on the CLNS Media Network, the leading online provider of audio-video coverage of the Boston Celtics. I'm Adam Kaufman, and episode 270 featuring ESPN Boston's Chris Forsberg is powered by Casper. Go to casper.com/Celtics and use the promo code Celtics for $50 off select mattresses. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's get moving because July is underway. That means free agency is underway, and much has happened since we last spoke. I remind you, as I always do, subscribe to Celtics Beat on iTunes. Make it easy. Just go there, search Celtics Beat, leave us a comment, leave us some feedback, whatever it is, the 5 stars, we appreciate it. Keeps us moving and just keeps the positive thoughts going. But again, lots happening since the last show, so let's dive right into it. Kawhi Leonard still available. Still, no one knows where Kyrie Irving wants to play in 2019. At least that's all the media gossip that we continue to hear and expound upon. And of course, we will talk plenty of Marcus Smart since he remains out there and might just be unhappy. First, Kyrie, though. ESPN had a report last week about the Knicks being poised to make moves in 2019 since Kyrie, Jimmy Butler, Kevin Durant, Kawhi, Klay Thompson, all these guys have the chance to be free agents. In this article, if you didn't have the chance to read it, had one of the dumbest sentences that you will ever read. Several executives expect Irving to give the Knicks consideration next summer if he tests free agency, per ESPN. Okay, let's just break that down for a second. Several executives, anonymous executives obviously, expect Irving to give the Knicks consideration next summer if he tests free agency, per ESPN. How many qualifiers do you need in one sentence? Expect, consideration, if, and then according to a report. That's a wild sentence right there. Which just goes to show, it says nothing. It says that, hey, guess what? It's possible Kyrie Irving, when he becomes a free agent, if he becomes a free agent, could maybe possibly look at a team that he has in the past reportedly considered playing for. At least a lot of people in NBA front offices who won't identify themselves believe that to be a fact. So stupid. The reporting out there right now, and I'm not going after specifically ESPN, obviously, or even intentionally one sentence within one article, because this stuff is all over the place. The hot takery that is going on right now has reached a whole new level where it becomes just plain stupid. All right? I'd rather, at least, if we're going to sit here and spend a little bit of time talking about stupid stuff, let's talk about stupid stuff that we actually know to be a fact, like how poorly the introduction has gone for Robert Williams in his Celtics career. There have been headaches all around for the 27th overall pick. He overslept for his introductory conference call. That was rescheduled for an hour later, and then he missed the team's first practice after missing a flight back to Boston from Louisiana when he was just here for the introductory press conference and then went to go back, get some, whatever. You know what? Williams discussed the early miscues in a little Q&A with the media.
What happened the other day on Sunday?
We know that voice, right? CLNS's Mike Petraglia, Trags right out of the gate, going for the jugular.
What happened the other day on Sunday?
I went home to get a couple of things, and just a misflight, miscommunication by me. It's all on me. So just looking to push forward and move past that.
What did the coaches kind of talk to you about after that?
Just accountability, which they expressed to me a lot when I first got here. Just accountability, and just stressing that this is a job. Things are different in college, so just knowing what you have and the opportunities are limited.
Maybe I have to keep stressing it, obviously, since the first message didn't really take necessarily. But he's taking accountability, at least in the way that he's talking to the media, which you expect and you appreciate and you hope that he would.
Have they talked to you about any discipline?
Definitely. They discipline you for words more than you may know. But
what does that mean? Do they talk to him like he's a child? Is it like when none of us out there likes to get disciplined by a parent or a boss, right? And this is effectively the relationship that he has. This is, as he said, it's a job now. Danny Ainge, Brad Stevens, all these coaches, nobody, none of us wants to be sat down and disciplined by our bosses. That is a miserable feeling, and it feels like you're being almost talked down to by your dad. Robert, it's not so much what you did. It's just the fact that I'm just really let down. I'm really disappointed in you. And if somebody gives a crap about you and their position, they're going to take that to heart, and they're going to feel that. So that, while I will agree with him, I agree that something like that could be more impactful than, hey man, listen, you're gonna be benched one of the summer league games, which by the way would be a disservice to the team as much as it would be to him. But it just feels funny to hear him say it, I guess.
Maybe a couple extra sprints or something like that. I don't know.
What was that feeling for yourself? Because we talked a little bit about that type of thing when you were here for your press conference and the conference call and everything else. When you realized that you were going to miss the flight, were you just kind of upset with yourself?
Yeah. It was more of a self-upset because people already have a bad image of me, I guess you could say. So,
can you imagine what must have gone through his head after already sleeping through that first call? And then this happens. He misses the flight. He just, crap. Damn it. How? One of those wish you could turn back time moments. We've all been there.
Just missing my flight didn't help that at all. But like I said, just looking to strive past that.
Does it sort of serve as a wake-up call for you?
Yeah.
Good pun, right? Wake-up call after sleeping through. Okay.
Definitely. I talked to Coach Stevens when I got back, and he
gave him an alarm clock.
Obviously explained to me about the opportunities. It's not that many, so definitely a wake-up call.
Yeah, don't blow it, right? The sound courtesy, by the way, Chris Forsberg Twitter account, and we will talk with Chris coming up in a moment. You can get all sorts of C sound from Summer League and elsewhere in the CLNS YouTube page, so make sure that you do subscribe and do that. But here, just quickly, bottom line thought, and we'll get into it a little bit with Chris as well. Robert Williams is the 27th pick. Just by virtue of that, you're a flyer. Whoever you are, at that stage, you're a flyer. And everybody knew, we talked about it after the draft on our draft recap show, and we've talked about it extensively elsewhere as well. Loads of potential with this kid, lottery pick talent, all sorts of off-the-court concerns. Some of them are rearing their heads here already, and that's why he dropped down to 27. Even just his game is personally. There are elements to his game and the way he plays and the fact that he can't stretch the floor and that he's really a back-to-the-basket kind of guy that in this era, today's game, today's NBA, I have cold sweats about him becoming Jahlil Okafor. But again, he is a flyer. Low risk, high reward. We've seen late 20s, mid-20s picks around here not work out. Happens all the time across the NBA, not just Boston. I mean, Jared Sullinger for a little while worked out. Ultimately, he didn't. He's not in the NBA. Fab Melo, may he rest in peace. We know what happened there. RJ Hunter, clearly a guy that has not been made for the NBA. Didn't work out in Boston or another stop since. So at 27, you are a flyer. I like the pick. I stand by it. I saw, one of our CLNS videos out there was, are you tired of this guy yet? You can't be tired of this guy. He hasn't been around long enough to be tired of him. He hasn't played a game yet as I talk to you in this moment that I'm recording. So hopefully he can have a strong summer league showing, put all of this behind him, and people won't even be thinking about it come the regular season or at least preseason and training camp and all that. But early headaches, as I said, absolutely. But with that, there's a lot to cover with Chris, as I mentioned, beyond Robert Williams, Marcus Smart, Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard, all of it. Let's dive right in. Let's welcome in Chris Forsberg, covers the Celtics for ESPN Boston. Chris, had to be nice to actually relax, maybe have a drink, barbecue on July 4th this year after all the story chasing and Twitter refreshing we had, well, each of the last 2 summers.
Yeah, I was thinking back, and I mean, really for the last 5 years, because when you think about it, 5 years ago, on July 3rd, they hired Brad Stevens.
Right.
And no one saw that coming. It was that 5 o'clock press release. And I remember we were just about to take my kids out to like this gigantic field with all this rides and face painting and all that. I was like, well, I've got to go.
Have fun, honey.
And then the last couple of years, either been on Durant watch. I remember I was sitting outside in Utah, and I was actually on SportsCenter when I felt my phone buzz, and it was the Player Tribune release. And now, luckily, I was off the air before people had time to read it, because I don't know what I would have done. I would have just sat there with a dumb expression on my face like, oh, my God, he's going to the Warriors. And then, of course, last year with the whole Gordon Hayward fiasco, and all of us were out in Utah for that, and that was just bizarre. We should have crashed the Ainge family barbecue and tried to get some insight. But, it was nice. It was refreshing this year to sort of sit back, and I did upgrade my watch this year. I got the Apple Watch that you can wear in the pool.
Oh, there you go.
So if I ever want to dive in for like 5 minutes, I can still not miss an alert that something is going down.
Do you still get all the notifications and everything? Or in the same way that would on your phone, or is it just email and text?
It's everything. It is. It's
oh
like
my
I
God.
can set up like Twitter alerts and all that. And like I said, there would be times where I would, I'd say, should I take a shower today? Because you don't want to miss that text message that, hey, something's going down. And, it gives you a little bit more flexibility. I don't think the panic ever leaves you, but at least it gives you a chance.
My wife would hate me. I'm bad with my phone it is. If I had one of those watches where everything's set up, it'd be a nightmare. That would be terrible. But, well, all right. So as we know right now, Aaron Baines is really the big free agent signing. I say that sort of tongue-in-cheek because, I do believe he's immensely important to the success of this club. It's actually kind of amazing to me looking at my notifications, and I don't know if you sort of go through the same thing, but how many people just see him as this goofy dude that gets dunked on all the time? They don't actually recognize his value, especially defensively.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the number one thing was last year you go back and you look at the player with the best individual defensive rating in the league, and it was Aaron Baines. Now, listen, he doesn't play a ton of minutes, plays 18.2 minutes per game, and but just to have him out there at the start of games, to be able to roll him out when you look at the East and you see guys like Giannis and guys like Joel Embiid, he is vital to the success of this team, especially with the way they're constituted currently and the way the East looks right now. I thought it was very important for them to find a way to sort of keep him around. Credit to Baines. Here's a guy who opted out of more money in Detroit to sign here. And I don't know if he could have known at that point how good they would have been because there was still so much change going on. And then enjoyed it so much last year, despite the fact that his role was sort of constantly in flux. Now, he started a lot of games during the regular season, but by the playoffs, obviously, they had to mix and match there, and Shemi Ojale taking his position at times there in games late in the Milwaukee series. Baines stuck it out through all of that, and then was pretty adamant that he was going to be back. And so good on the Celtics for finding a way to get him back so quickly. I think it speaks to what the Celtics have building here and the way guys like Baines, once they get a taste of it, sort of want to be a part of it.
Well, and the guy announces his returns sitting in a chair in the dark in his house wearing his Celtics jersey in the middle of the night. You pretty much have to love him. But as we talk right now at this moment, and I qualify that because this is a weekly podcast, but right now there's no deal yet for Marcus Smart. In fact, there are conflicting reports. You have Mark Murphy of the Herald saying there's been no communication and Smart is hurt and disgusted by that. Keith Smith, who I think has done a terrific job during this free agency period, especially over at Real GM, said a couple of days prior to that report that there's been good dialogue and neither side is in a rush. Walter McCarty even posted something laughing about anonymous sources. So do me a favor, just clear this all up right now.
Well, I won't pick sides amongst my reporter friends.
Sure.
But I will say I think restricted free agency is very difficult. And I think we've seen this bear out over the past few years. I don't know if it's a good system, and I think the league sort of has to look at it because one, the players realize that they just don't get a lot of offers because teams don't want to tie up that money, and it's understandable. When you know that the other team can match anything you put out there, it's just a prickly process, and so. In a year like this, especially where teams like Indiana, who we thought would be maybe the most aggressive suitor for a guy like Marcus Smart, they come out and make a move immediately at the start of free agency to get Dougie buckets, and all of a sudden they don't have the cash to sort of go after him. And I think what it is Marcus Smart made it well known, telling Jackie McMullen right after that Game 7 loss that he thought he deserved big money, and even the guys like Danny Ainge said, "Hey, he can feel that way." He probably wishes he doesn't vocalize it in the media, but it's certainly within Marcus Smart's right to feel like he deserves to be paid at that level. And it's just right now the market isn't conducive for that, and so he's in a tough spot. And so I think there's some frustration on Marcus's part. Obviously, I think anybody who goes into a situation where of free agency, you sit there and want to be overwhelmed by offers, and I think we understand that that's just not happening in this environment. And so Marcus has a tough decision now. Do you sit there and take the qualifying offer of $6.1 million and bet on yourself and bet on your team and understand that if the Celtics have a really good season maybe in unrestricted free agency, there's more offers next year. There's a better chance to sign that big money deal. Or do you meet the Celtics somewhere in the middle there and say, okay, let's think about a 2-year deal for $24 million, $28 million, whatever the Celtics are willing to go to. But I also look at it from the Celtics perspective and I say, that's really the last thing they have to worry about when they construct this roster, because until another team forces that issue, they really don't have to address it.
According to your colleague Chris Haynes, DeMarcus Cousins was between Boston and Golden State before choosing the Warriors at cheap money. Now, I personally would have loved that for a variety of reasons, but Chris Maddox, Adam Himmelsbach, they both said that by the time the C's actually learned of Cousins' interest, he was basically already a Warrior. So I'll ask you this. Did the Celtics screw this up somehow?
No, I think they were probably just, as best I can connect the dots, were alerted probably by DeMarcus's camp that there was some interest on his behalf. And it's one of those phone calls where it's like, well, would you guys have an interest? And I think the Celtics sit there and say, we just brought back Baines, we just drafted a big man, but, you don't, if you can get DeMarcus Cousins for cheap money, you don't turn that down.
I know anything can happen with regard to injury, so I won't bother asking you or anyone else to attempt to project that. But knowing what we know, do you subscribe to that notion that season's over before it's even started, Warriors are going to do it again, even if the Celtics are in the finals?
No, I do. I like it when people get so worked up about this, like, oh, why even play the season? And sure, it's easy to sit here. I think we all sat here last year and said it's going to be Cavs Warriors again. And it bared out. But, how it got there didn't exactly go the route that I think most of us thought. Like, who would have thought Cleveland would have had so much trouble and would have needed LeBron to pick them up and carry a ragtag crew through Game 7 against the Celtics, and the Warriors almost getting knocked off by the Rockets there in their final. So I just feel like you got to play it out, because so much can happen and things get weird and teams come out of nowhere. And as much as we go in with this sort of conceived notion about how the season is going to play out and the Warriors are just going to win it, something will happen. It'll get interesting.
We'll get back to Chris in just a second. I want to tell you today's episode of Celtics Beat brought to you by Casper. Casper is a sleep brand that makes expertly designed products to help you get your best sleep one night at a time. You spend 1/3 of your life sleeping. Why be uncomfortable? Casper products are designed with you in mind. Everything they make supports any type of body. Not sure what mattress is right for you? Start with the original Casper. With over 20,000 reviews, it's quickly becoming the internet's favorite mattress. The Casper is equipped with multiple supportive memory foams, and it regulates your body temperature throughout the night. And Casper sells more than mattresses. They also sell sheets, pillows to ensure a better overall sleep experience, and they do it all at affordable prices because they sell directly to you. You can be sure of your purchase with Casper's 100-night risk-free Sleep On It trial. You don't like it? No sweat. Free shipping and returns to customers in the U.S. and Canada. What are you waiting for? Get $50 off select mattresses by going to casper.com/Celtics and using the promo code Celtics at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's get back to Chris. And I feel the need to keep saying the qualifier of right now, not only just because obviously this isn't a daily show, but because of the fact that, a year ago at this time, Isaiah Thomas was still the face of this team. It wasn't Kyrie Irving. He was acquired in August. So as we talk here about Kawhi Leonard, he's still available. Adrian Wojnarowski said if Boston continues to pursue the disgruntled San Antonio star, it'd be a picks-heavy package because Celts' top 5 players, presumably the starting 5, are all unavailable. Is that the sense that you're getting as well, that all of those guys are kind of quote-unquote untouchable?
Sure, but I'll say this, is when you're sitting there and you're making trade offers with teams, you never say, oh, well, all these guys are available. You never put all your cards on the table. So I do think that if Danny Ainge is talking with them, and I'm sure that they prefer to do a pick-heavy package, and it's a little surprising that San Antonio wouldn't be more interested in that. I get the notion that the Spurs have this sort of philosophy, and they've won for a long time, and you want to continue that winning. But I think what we've seen in the NBA is that sometimes it's better to hit the reboot button and kind of get as much assets as you can and build it back up quick, not unlike what the Celtics did in terms of maybe have that one down year, but with the right moves and the right draft picks, you can put this thing back on track real quick. Whereas, if you keep just kind of trying to maintain that cycle of winning, it can get difficult, and it sort of got to get those high draft picks to turn things around. So, but there certainly would be interest in a package of, not only draft picks, but young talent. And so if I'm Danny Ainge, I call the Spurs and I say, hey, listen, here's what I'm thinking. I don't want to really mess with this core. I really like it. I think we have championship potential. We'd love to do a deal that's built around these picks. But before you do any deal, just give me a call. And so if the Spurs call and say, listen, we haven't been overwhelmed by offers. We'd really like to go with yours because we think you got the best picks that will help us sort of build this thing back up. But we need Jaylen Brown in this trade. Then I think it goes back on Danny to think long and hard about whether that's a worthwhile venture. Now, I'll caution this with all the red flags. Like, one, you probably got to get some time with Kawhi because, one, you got to figure out where his head's at, not only about why it went wrong last year in San Antonio, but is he just dead set on LA? Like, is there any chance he's going to consider an extension with your team? Because I do think once you get him here, you can sort of sell him on it.
I agree with a lot of that. And obviously the biggest unknown is that quad and what the future of that is and why it went so badly injury-wise. Never mind the personal standpoint, but just the injury-wise, why it went so poorly last year and where he is at medically and if he will ever, I tweeted about this too. Will Kawhi Leonard ever be Kawhi Leonard again? We don't know. It's just one of those, we don't know if never mind Isaiah, same applies to him, but if Kyrie Irving will be Kyrie Irving again with that knee after multiple surgeries. You hope, but I feel myself more than anything keep coming back to the mental side of things, and obviously you hit on a lot of this with Kawhi. Just why, how does a guy quit on his teammates like that last year? How does he quit on a coach like Greg Popovich? How does he quit on that organization the way he did, and not only quit and not play, but quit and outright leave? I'm going to New York. I don't even want to be around the situation. I'm not coming back for the playoffs when I've been medically cleared by the team, all of that, to then, and again, a report is a report. We've heard nothing specifically from Kawhi Leonard, but then you have the Yahoo report that, never mind Boston's rumored or reported interest in Kawhi Leonard, but that Kawhi might not even be all that into Boston because he doesn't want to join a super team. And for that reason, he would prioritize the Clippers over the Lakers because he doesn't want to go to L.A., that side, now that LeBron is there. He doesn't want to even be part of that. I don't know, and I don't expect you to know this either, I don't know what is important to this guy.
Yeah. What's funny is sometimes I feel the same way about Kyrie.
Sure.
Is, what makes Kyrie tick? Jackie McMullen had a great piece last year early in the season. And it was because a lot of people were like, well, why did Kyrie want out of Cleveland? And I think we understand that LeBron cast a big shadow, and that's tough to be in. And so, but what made him tick, and what was he searching for in coming to Boston? And I feel a little bit about the same way about Kawhi. It's like, okay, he's experienced all this winning. He's a very, at least to the media, very quiet guy. I don't know what makes him tick. And so, I think so much of the Celtics' interest would be predicated on that, on like their research and trying to find out all they can about that situation in San Antonio. Like, if things got really serious, I can see Brad Stevens calling Greg Popovich and considering the friendship they have and being like, hey, can you give me some insight here? Like, why didn't this go right? And I would be fascinated to hear that conversation.
Yeah.
Because we know, Pop came out and talked about why it went sour with LaMarcus Aldridge and, how, how there was some regret in that situation and trying to patch that up.
But he did. He fixed it.
Yeah. And so I don't think that's unreasonable to think that, we did a vote for ESPN forecast about where you think the most likely place that Kawhi Leonard plays to start next season. And I said San Antonio because I do think that still the most likely scenario is they're not overwhelmed by the trade offers that are out there, that teams are reluctant to put their best assets on the table. And ultimately you bank on your organization and your culture that you can repair that. And the luxury in your back pocket is you still have that super max that he can't get anywhere else. And if money is what drives Kawhi, then, at some point, whether it's sign and trade or whatever, you're still going to recoup value on him. But yeah, it's such a delicate situation. I guess I always joke about it. I say Danny Ainge sits there and waits for these moments when top 5 guys become available so you can pounce. And he's already done it once with a guy like Kyrie where, hey, no one saw that coming. But the Celtics were in the game. They had the assets. They had everything that could make that a reality, and they did it. And with Kawhi, you'd love to just say, oh, all right, here's a top 5 guy. Let's just go make this a reality. But there's just so many different variables that are out there. And I go back to it. The Celtics are in such a good position that, you hate to add any, risk to the situation. And you got to be diligent about just trusting your own process and all that. So I do think that's what adds this layer of difficulty to this situation and trying to figure out how this all works.
On Kyrie, there was a report out of Chicago last week, Jimmy Butler upset in Minnesota that he and Irving are looking to team up at some point, be it in Boston or maybe when they're both free agents a year from now, if in fact they're free agents a year from now. The New York stuff, it's out there. Is this just kind of more off-season noise and chatter, or do you think there's something there?
No, I do think there's something to the idea that they want to play together, but I think a lot of NBA guys want to play together. And making that actually happen and become a reality is two different things. How long have we been hearing about LeBron wanting to get all of his banana boat friends together, and what will that ever happen? And there's certainly something to it in terms of the two players wanting to play together. But I don't know, like from a Celtics perspective, it's fun to have a Jimmy Butler rumor back in the mix because it had been too long.
It had been a bit, yeah.
It had been at least 3 months since we've been down this road, and for the number of times that we've investigated it, it's like
years, literally years.
So, but I also think maybe that ship might have sailed. Like I just feel like the Celtics had the assets and the means to go get a Jimmy Butler at various times. And ultimately, they elected not to. And maybe there's certainly a different situation now, and but they still have all these assets. And if they wanted to make that a reality, you feel like they could do it. And the one thing I'd be leery of is making moves to appease a star on your team. You certainly want Kyrie to have all the reasons in the world to re-sign here next summer. But, you don't want to sign up all of his friends and then have a situation where he says, oh, I'm going elsewhere.
Where he's LeBron, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And all of a sudden you're left with a roster that's not exactly conducive to what you were building. I don't think that's even a concern because I'm sure we'll get to Kyrie, but I feel like there's no reason to think he's going to flee. But I just don't know if we should put too much stock into one writer in Chicago saying that Jimmy Butler and Kyrie Irving would want to play together. I'm sure there's a list of players that Kyrie Irving would love to play with, one of which was Gordon Hayward, and they've already got him here.
All right, well, I'm going to put stock in one writer in Boston, and that's you. Do you believe, all I can ask you is what you believe, do you believe in this moment Kyrie Irving intends to stay in Boston long term? I
do, but it's not in Kyrie's demeanor to say that. And I think
we've learned that.
Yeah, he likes to challenge the conventional. And so while I think he understands it would be really refreshing for Celtics fans to hear him come out and say, listen, I love it here. This has been everything I've dreamed of. You got to sort of parse it in what he says. And that big press conference he held during the Uncle Drew promotion, I thought the big takeaways I got were he really appreciates the transparency he has with the front office and Brad Stevens. I think he likes the ability to go to Danny and say, all right, what are we doing this summer? And as all those rumors at that point were swirling about, whoa, would the Celtics make a run at LeBron? And, all this, like he can lay it out for Kyrie and say, here's what we're thinking, and Kyrie at that point said, LeBron didn't come up. And you just got to trust that maybe that you would think they would be honest with him in that situation. And I'm sure there have been times where because of LeBron, he hasn't maybe known all the inner workings and what the front office was thinking and how much LeBron impacted that and all that. So I think he likes that. I think he enjoys the tradition and playing in that arena. He said it multiple times about the energy in the building. I think he likes the idea that he's sort of the guy on this team. He has some help, obviously, and he loves that the young guys are coming along while he can remain the focal point. And what I hope is that this summer sort of reminded him that he can be sort of that elite star, that movie star, and still go to LA in the off season and go to New York and do his premieres. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that you have to live in one of those cities in order to be the movie star and do those sort of things. You can balance it all no matter where you live, and especially in this day and age, it's such a small world. I don't know if that's as big of a deal. It's not like he's going to go 10,000 miles to get back to New Jersey and visit home or or get to New York or whatever. So every indication from me has been that he has loved his time in Boston, but he's going to leave that door open, because then if something wild happens and he decides to move on, he can say, hey, listen, I never committed myself to Boston. From a business perspective, I understand it. It's just not going to be a very warm and fuzzy year probably for Celtics fans, especially since, as Kyrie himself admitted, it's going to come up every day. And when the Knicks come to town, I think about last year, the late in the regular season, they played the Knicks, and the beat writers for the Knicks stood in the hallway, the narrow hallway between the two locker rooms, and formed a little wall as Kyrie was leaving. And he came around the corner and saw him and was like, spin move, nope, we're not doing this, I'm out of here. And credit to him, he just, he knows that that's going to be a lingering storyline. Part of that, I do think, is that Kyrie likes maybe some of that a little attention and that sort of curiosity about what he'll do.
Well, he learned from the best there.
Right, exactly. I think we all have egos, right? We all want to have that stoked a little bit. So even if he downplays it and says, like, it's not on my mind, you still like to hear it. And, hey, to bring it full circle, that's why Marcus Smart is probably sitting here right now saying, hey, why is there more buzz about me being out there? And it's just natural for these players to want to feel wanted. And so I think Kyrie wants to get to unrestricted free agency, see how it goes. But listen, Boston can offer the most money. They can offer probably the best situation in the East right now. Nothing in my mind says that he won't be here when the 2019-20 season tips.
It's funny you bring up when he's doing that Uncle Drew press tour and talked about the transparency with the front office and the ability to, as you said, go to Danny, go to Brad, talk about plans. What are we doing? What are we thinking? I tweeted at that time, took a lot of flack for it from people out on Twitter too. Isaiah Thomas used to talk the exact same way. It's like, but granted, that was a different case where Isaiah was begging for the money, and now it's more the Celtics sort of begging to give Kyrie the money and hoping that he will accept it. But Jaylen Brown, obviously we talked about him. I want to just take this in another vein very quickly. He posted a picture to Instagram a few days ago with Butler and Dwayne Wade. It got mild social media attention. I'm not going to ask you what it means. It doesn't mean anything. I don't care about any of that. What I do care about, somebody actually brought this up to me on Twitter, and I thought it was an interesting talking point. He said one thing he's taken notice of is, and you would be much closer to it than he would, than I would, than whoever, that guys around the league seem to really like Jaylen and maybe one day would want to play with him. Do you think we think he's going to be good? He could be great. We've talked about that. But do you think he could also be a valuable recruiter for the C's down the road? Is he a guy that, from that standpoint, he's someone you want to hang on to?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thought. I've never really considered it that way. I certainly think that his ability to network and, when we saw those photos from Fashion Week in Paris and he's there with him, Harden was there, right? And like on this all-star crew.
Right.
That is neat when, I don't know if we've really had a Celtics player in recent history that's sort of had those ties to maybe what we call that sort of inner circle of NBA elite. I think, again, it goes back to Jaylen's personality. He's just a very endearing guy. You want to talk to him. You want to, hear what he has to say. It also helps that he's really good at basketball, and that as we saw from that year 1 to year 2, that jump, it started slow, but I think by the end of the year, at least in my mind, the maybe the ceiling that I had sort of had in my mind for him is maybe elevated a little bit. And there's just natural curiosity to see where that grows. But I do like the idea that he sort of can be an ambassador for you too. The more players that you have that can connect on that level with other elite talent, it certainly doesn't hurt. I think that's the same way about Brad Stevens. Now, part of that is just players look at Brad and say, wow, what is it about this guy that he's able to get the best out of everybody? And that's more so with the Evan Turners of the world and all the way that he's taken these guys and maximized their strengths. But, also as their ability to communicate and develop relationships, that certainly helps. I can see a situation where as this team starts transitioning to maybe more of Tatum and Brown than necessarily Al and Kyrie. Now, like if it's Kyrie's here, he's always going to sort of be the focal point. But, as those guys sort of grow in stature around the league and become sort of the focal points of this team and, further down the road, maybe they're the all-stars while, the aging veterans are there. I could certainly see a situation where Jaylen Brown is helping you construct this roster and being a draw for other players.
So, in the event that discussion, that segment ever ends up getting sort of not replayed but redone on, one of the NBC Sports Boston shows, because I could see it being, like I said, a good talking point. This is probably where they would take it. I think it'd be a fun way to do it too. Who do you think would be Jaylen Brown's banana boat?
Well, I mean, the fact that he posted that Jimmy Butler photo, maybe we got to throw him in there.
I mean, just another reason that things are going well with Kyrie.
Yeah,
they both want to play with Butler, maybe. Let's wrap things up here on a lighter note, and I think you and I have actually, had this conversation off the air at one point years ago. But occasionally on this show, we talk personal Twitter accounts, and there's something that I always love about yours. It's that you only follow 13 people. And it's and on top of that, it's a fairly bizarre mix, if I'm being honest. Like, you don't follow Woj, you don't follow Shams, but you do follow Adam Jones at the Sports Hub. How among others, how do you stay on top of everything? Does it all go back to the Apple Watch notifications, or what's the method to the madness?
So there's two things at play here. One is I guess I don't want to say I was ahead of the curve, but I can vividly remember being in Tampa Bay in 2008, I think it was, and I was doing I was a high school sports reporter for The Globe and Boston.com, but I was asked to start doing a little bit more like pro stuff, and so they'd send me out with a video camera. And I was very fortunate. I got to be part of the Celtics 2008 title run. I got to go out to LA for that and really just videotape our columnists at that point talking, getting post-game reaction and stuff, honestly, that not a lot of places were doing at that time. And that was really rewarding, but it also got me to be around the situation. Well, that night in Tampa, I set up my personal Twitter. And I mean, from that thing, I probably follow a bazillion people. So when I first got to ESPN,
I didn't realize there were multiple Twitter accounts.
There is. So they're not burner accounts, but they're pretty close. So I had this account that I had all these people already followed from, and then I set up the ESPN one, and I said, well, I just don't have the energy to go back through and follow it. But what I did do is I created a whole bunch of lists because I sort of realized that on my phone I could just stay logged into ESPN Forsberg and pull up my Celtics list or my national list, and that gave me access to everybody. And with alerts and with everything, I'm able to sort of keep on top of everything. What I did do was I tried to follow, when we first started ESPN Boston, I tried to follow all of our ESPN Boston writers to just be able to see what they were doing. And so obviously Adam Jones was a part of our ESPN Boston radio at that point. Yeah. So he muscled his way in. Not that I don't love Jones and our Northeastern connection. So he gets the follow. And I do tell people that if you manage to muscle your way into that list, either I accidentally followed you or I really, really respect what you do. And so I know
it's
people
a fine
get
line.
a little. Yeah, and I don't want people to think I'm shading them if I don't follow them from that account, because it does work against me in some regards, because if I'm not following someone and they don't have direct messages from everyone turned on, then it becomes a hassle to get a hold of anybody that I don't have their phone number already. Mm-hmm. And so there are obstacles to this whole list management. But yeah, it is pretty routinely brought up where people will say, give me a follow back. And I'll say, well, I can't really do that. I can follow you from my burner account, but I can't follow you from the ESPN Forsberg account. And then they asked about the Twitter picture, which is also one of my favorite things with Danny Ainge and what I would guess is 8-year-old ESPN Forsberg hanging out at Spags in Shrewsbury back in the day.
Has he ever mentioned that?
He has. What was funny is it took him a while, and so maybe I should take that as a slight that Danny wasn't following on my Twitter account, but he did come up to me one day and said, "Hey, I finally noticed your Twitter picture, and what's the deal with that?" And he's like, I must have known you from somewhere.
Chris Forsberg, I took up way too much of your time, so I appreciate it, but that was a great chat about the season and all beyond. Thank you very much, sir.
Oh, thank you, Adam.
Tons of great stuff from Chris. It's about all the time we have, though, so I got to get out of here. But I wanted to make sure that you heard all that he had to say, because this early July, it's a silly season. This is a fun time of the year, and there's so much yet to be determined. Hell, we're still over a month out from when the Celtics traded for Kyrie Irving at this time last year. So think you know what it's going to look like entering the regular season with Danny Ainge. Fact of the matter is, you do not know. You do not know anything. Let's get a Summer League championship, huh? Well, at least maybe some Geno in Vegas. See ya.